Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Breaking Down the Barriers to Job Sharing Masterclass with Screenwell and CrewHQ. My name is Kirsty Stark. I'm the founder of CrewHQ and a producer for many years. And before that, I was in camera department for a long time. So looking at this from both perspectives, and it's so great to see a huge number of people registered for today. I think the work that Screenwell has done around job sharing on this report, Breaking Down the Barriers to Job Sharing, is going to have a significant impact on the way we work in this industry in future and create a lot of work-life balance and opportunities for people who can't work 50 plus hours on set. So it's great to have you all here today. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we're meeting on various traditional lands across Australia and beyond. I'm personally dialing in from the lands of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains, and I'd like to acknowledge all elders past and present. Okay, so today is about job sharing, and we'll be going through several different sessions as part of this masterclass. To start with, I'll be introducing the team from Screenwell as well as Rachel Rauch, who has been driving this job sharing initiative with the Screenwell team. We'll go into a presentation about their report, how it came to be, and what job sharing is. And then towards the end, we'll get into the real nitty-gritty of how to find a job sharing partner and set up yourself for job sharing success. So there's a lot of really specific actionable info towards the end of the session, and we'd recommend you stick around to hear all of it if possible. And to end things, we'll have time for your questions and answers. And we've had a lot of fantastic questions submitted in advance as well, so we'll be adding those into the presentation as we can. If you can't stay for the whole time, there will be a recording available that we'll send to everyone afterwards. So strap in, and I'd now like to hand over to Ben Steele from Screenwell. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Kirsty. Hello, everybody. I'm zooming in today from the Yugambeh language people's land, so acknowledging that. A little bit about what brings me here today. I'm incredibly passionate about improving well-being in our beloved film industry. So I founded Screenwell back in March 2022 just to do exactly that. We work with individuals, educators, and businesses and industry to improve the mental health outcomes for the Australian screen sector through industry guides, reports, training, research, and advocacy. I was beyond thrilled when Rachel brought the idea of this job share project to us last year. It made total sense that we need to understand the barriers job sharers face in our screen workplaces and how we can support our screen colleagues so that it becomes a viable and a really, really common way we can work if we choose to. Our job share pilot partnership was with Matchbox Pictures and financed with the assistance of Screen Australia. And it's part of Screenwell's evolution this year in identifying and addressing some of the systemic underlying issues that impact our sector, including mental health and wellbeing, inclusion and accessibility, leadership and culture, and sustainability. So arguably more important than the pilot project itself, I would say, our report, Breaking Down the Barriers to Job Sharing, reveals to us all the actionable steps forward we need to take to make job sharing thrive in the Australian screen sector. And this masterclass today and our partnership with CrewHQ is the important next step to provide some additional support and information for potential job sharers. It's my incredible honor to introduce you now to Rachel, who started this whole movement with us. And we're just so thrilled that she reached out to us last year. So Rachel, over to you.
Thanks, Ben. Hi, everyone. I'm also really happy to be working with Screenwell on this initiative. I started to look into job sharing when I had been off work for a while with chronic fatigue syndrome, CFS, and I was happily getting better and wanted to get back to work, but I couldn't go from working not at all to 50 plus hours a week. And that's when I started doing research on job sharing and reaching out to people. And one of the people that I reached out to was Screenwell, because I could see that there wasn't anybody catering to the job sharing space in Australia. And the more I spoke to people, the more convinced I became that this really was something which a lot of people could benefit from. And so I'm really happy that we've gotten to as far as we have with it so far in our program with Matchbox Pictures and being funded by Screen Australia. And I'm really happy to have you all here today wanting to learn more about it. I've read some of the questions that have come in. So I'm really looking forward to getting stuck in and sharing all that I've learned over the past few years of working in this space.
Thanks, Rachel.
I think we're going to kick us off now with a bit of a presentation to start.
I should unmute myself, should I? Are you able to make the slides available there, Kirsty?
Oh,
there we go. Okay. All right. So this is just a brief 15-minute-ish presentation about the actual initiative that we ran, breaking down the barriers to job sharing. Hopefully it will encapsulate and answer some of the questions that have come through. So let's hope that that's the case. So firstly, I'll start with what is job sharing. Perhaps unsurprisingly, job sharing is when two people share one job. But there are a few different ways that can happen. So it can be a division by time. So you can split weeks, you can split days, you can alternate weeks, or filming blocks. It can be a division by duties. So it can be based on workflow and or each partner's expertise, such as senior and junior, for example, and it can be a division by location. So one partner works remotely and the other is on location or on site. This is probably the least common, but it is possible on a few in certain scenarios. So why do we need job sharing? Well, here you can see a whole bunch of reports from all around. The one on the left is a global report demanding dignity behind the scenes. The rest are Australian reports, and they all recommend job sharing as a solution to some of the challenges with long hours and the working conditions in the industry. So that's point number one. There are also a number of benefits to job sharing. So from a screen worker perspective, maintaining good mental health and avoiding burnout, cultivating a better work-life balance, addressing health challenges and allowing for rest breaks, providing time and flexibility to work on creative projects or side hustles, study and pursue higher education or opportunities to upskill, and maintain caring responsibilities, whether that's children, parents, family, or friends. But there are also a number of employer benefits, the little known employer benefits of job sharing I wanted to take you through. So they enable production teams to have access to their preferred crew that they otherwise might not have, because at the moment, crew and skill shortages, for example. They provide two sets of experience, creativity, skills, and contacts in the one role, which is particularly helpful for creative roles. It reduces psychosocial risks and hazards and the impacts of fatigue and burnout, which is a requirement of all employers by law. Job sharers can provide cover if the other job sharer becomes ill. That's not always the case, but it can be a benefit. And it's an opportunity to bring production companies and producers' values to life. So if they value diversity, accessibility, and inclusion, this is a great way in which to bring those values to life. So job sharing is relatively unexplored in Australia. It does exist, but it's largely ad hoc, as Rachel said. It's often come about because people like Rachel want to continue working in the industry and they can't for whatever reason. So that's how job sharing has come about to date. But there is also a great deal to learn from overseas initiatives. So England in particular has done a number of pilots and research into job sharing. So there's a lot to learn from overseas. So in terms of breaking down the barriers to job sharing and what we actually did, the first step was we looked at all the reports and looked at a whole bunch of other resources online to work out how can we best run a proposal, a pilot for our production partner, which was Matchbox Pictures. The second phase was promote the pilot to assess the demand. We wanted to understand, is there actually a demand for job sharing in Australia? And of course, recruit job sharers for the pilot. Onboarding and check-ins. So supporting teams as they get established, and of course during the production was the third phase. And the last phase was write the report and create recommendations for the industry in the hope that we can encourage the adoption of job sharing moving forward in Australia. So we received 202 expressions of interest for our pilot program. So 202 EOIs. It was a Sydney-based production, so it's not necessarily an indicator of the demand in Australia, but it certainly suggests that there is a lot of people interested in job sharing in Australia. So in terms of job department roles, job roles and department preferences, so the EOI was open to all of these roles here. So at the time, the production had availabilities for these roles and these departments. So we had 15 people inquire about or submit an EOI for an accounts assistant production accountant role. There was 70 people interested in the art department. We had 55 people interested in an assistant editor role. We had 69 interested in a camera operator opportunity, 35 in the costume department, 27 in the lighting department, 20 in the grips department, and 38 in the unit department. So we had a really broad cross-section of people interested in a whole bunch of roles across the industry, which in some respects was surprising. Why are you interested in job sharing was a question we wanted to ask everyone on in this masterclass now. Really keen to understand why you are interested in job sharing. Are we able to see comments, Kirsty? How does that work? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, yes, if you all add your comments in the chat, that would be great. We're just really keen to get a sense of why you're here and why you're interested in job sharing.
As Ben said, post your comments here, folks.
I've had a lot of comments come through in the pre-survey as well about people looking at specific departments. One question that's come up, Jonathan, that you might be able to answer, is this just for below the line roles, or are above the line and HOD roles open to job sharing as well?
Are above the line and open for job sharing.
Yeah, does job sharing work with above the line roles or HOD roles, or is it just for assistant roles generally?
Well, it certainly can work for, I mean, what we kind of looked at with this pilot was complexity. So we were like, let's start with, I guess, the least complex roles to job share. So we'd probably say HOD roles and above the line roles are, I mean, depending on the role and depending on the circumstances, may be more complex. But there's no reason why any job within the industry couldn't be job shared in the right, with the right people and the right circumstances.
Yeah, fantastic. And I know we'll get into that more in the job sharing plan as well.
Yeah. Should we keep going? And I'll talk through the motivations of the people from the expressions of interest.
Great.
Oh, there we go. Flexibility opportunities. Yes, indeed. So in terms of the EOIs, we had 146 people interested in the upskilling opportunity. So what was interesting about that was we decided as part of our recommendations to separate upskilling from job sharing more broadly, just simply because there are a lot of training programs that exist for people wanting to upskill. There's mentorship programs, but with job sharing, it's really specifically about two people sharing a job. So we just thought, whilst job sharing is being established, we should separate the two things for the time being. But in addition to that, we had 115 people who wanted to improve their work-life balance. 105 people wanted to work on projects and their own business. So there you go. The side hustle is a thing in 2024. 37 people wanted to return to the workforce. 18 people had personal health issues with it, was their reason. And 27 people had caring responsibilities as their reason. And that's interesting because job sharing is often associated with parents and carers. But what we're seeing here is that there is actually a heap of reasons that people want to job share, including allowing time for study. So we asked, do people have job share partners that they would like to apply with? 176 said no, which is perhaps unsurprising. 7 said yes, and 17 said maybe I might have someone to job share with. In terms of the recruitment, so once we had our 202 EOIs, we put forward suggestions to Matchbox, and there were a number of barriers that we did encounter during recruitment, which we expected, and that was part of what we wanted to do. We wanted to understand them so that we could overcome them. So some of the ones that that came up was most roles had already been filled well before pre-production, and I think this was interesting even for the people at Matchbox, which was producers speak to HODs or department heads a couple of months, 3-4 months, even longer before a production begins, but they often have conversations with their preferred crew almost immediately, which means whilst productions have roles that are available in pre-production or just before pre-production, they have often been promised to people. So that was a really interesting insight into how productions accrued. Departments had several practical concerns, such as hiring 2 job sharers who had never worked together before, tracking the workload and ensuring continuity, handover of information. This is a big one. Our research showed that this is a big concern for many, and it was on this project as well. Our support systems not in place, so things like if job sharers are managing the continuity with things like shared phones or shared email addresses, the fact that that wasn't in place beforehand was a concern for some, and how that would work in practice. Job sharers who are unknown to the production, hiring practices center around pre-existing relationships. So if job sharers were not known to the production, it was a problem. Matchbox also had several competing initiatives underway at the time. So they had attachment programs going on, they had a sustainability program going on. So there was a lot of competing initiatives. But ultimately, we found that HODs and crews are under enormous pressure going into production, and anything that compounds this can understandably result in resistance. And that was one of the things that we found with this initiative. So in terms of the pilot, we ended up with 1 job share team in a creative role. We haven't named the department because we're trying to respect the confidentiality of the participants of the pilot. But 1 job share team on a 3-month shoot, and we were going for 3 to 5. So the barriers played a role in not necessarily achieving that 3 to 5 roles. And the role, the actual role originated from within the department, which really shows how important existing relationships are. JS1 is job sharer number 1, shared Monday to Wednesday, and job sharer number 2 was Thursday and Friday. So the key takeaways from the pilot was the biggest challenge to overcome is managing the handover. Particularly in a creative role, how do we share information? And we'll obviously get to this later in this masterclass. The HOD felt that each role should be considered on its own merits, and we absolutely agree. Job sharing is not a one-size-fits-all, even though there are similarities between certain roles. Often they require, there are different considerations for different roles across the industry. More time was needed during onboarding. And a crossover period would have been hugely beneficial, people felt within the department. By crossover, we just mean job sharers having time to have those conversations to ensure that creative continuity. And we found that the main draw card for the HOD was access to talent, because the job sharer, one of the job sharers would not have otherwise been available for this project. And also the additional creative mind was a huge benefit. And this is a quote from the head of department. Once I worked out how to get over the problem of creative continuity, I was reaping the benefits of it. And it was better for the production. It broadens the creative perspective of my team, and it makes it less one note. So creative benefits from job sharing. So our recommendations for job sharers were, job sharers should ideally be in a team already and be known to the production, because now we know how important pre-existing relationships are. And also job sharers need a plan to overcome the barriers and practical concerns of productions. So to get around the fact that there are barriers and practical concerns, if job sharers have a really solid plan that can address them off the bat, it's going to make it much more likely that productions will say yes. And this led us to our partnership with CrewHQ. And I guess one of the benefits of only having the one job share team, we could spend more time on the solutions and how to actually make these recommendations a reality for people, because this is quite tricky. So the partnership with CrewHQ came about because of this, and the open to job sharing function was really key. It helps job sharers to identify and connect with each other. I won't go into that now because Kirsty can go into that in a moment. And also creating this job share plan, how to create a job share plan. So we spent some time developing a template to help job sharers overcome the concerns and the barriers that we identified. Recommendations for productions were lead the way with job sharing, actively be open to it, and start job sharing conversations early, because as we heard, that is super important. HODs to work with job share teams on their plan. So if teams come to them with a plan, help them to make sure that it's really gonna set everyone up for success, and be open to crossover periods. So crossover periods are an interesting one. They're obviously beneficial, but we were certainly mindful with this pilot of not costing productions any more money by having job sharers. So that was something that we wanted to work out. And what's interesting is in Australia, our standard 10-hour days consist of ordinary hours, but also overtime. So in effect, crews are getting paid for 11 hours and they work 10. So what this means from a job sharing perspective is that we can have two job sharers do 5.5-hour days and have a half an hour crossover period together where they can have those conversations and hand over information, and it won't actually cost the production anything. And in addition to that, Matchbox did some modeling and found that there are actually a number of ways that we can structure crossovers dependent on the needs of the role. So there's actually quite a few different options. I won't go into these now. This is all in the report, but there are a number of ways that productions can address the needs of the job share team without costing the production anything, or just costing it a small amount. And so that's a real quick summary of breaking down the barriers to job sharing. Obviously, all the details are in the report. You can download the report by using that QR code or following the link there. That's it from me. Who's next?
That would be me. So thanks so much, Jonathan. That's really helpful overview information. And now it's time to start getting into some of the details about how you personally can start accessing job sharing opportunities in the industry. So we at CrewHQ are really strong supporters of job sharing for so many reasons. Many of them have come up in the chat already today around, the sustainability of long hours for a lot of people, safety issues, well-being concerns, and just opportunities for a more diverse range of people to be working in the industry. So when we heard that they were doing this report, we were like, okay, how can we make this actionable and practical and build it into CrewHQ? So for those of you who don't know CrewHQ, we launched last year as a one-stop shop for hiring freelancers across Australia. And we're a website where you can basically set up a LinkedIn style profile that's tailored to the film industry, and job hirers can access that profile and search for you by a whole range of specific industry filters. So right from the beginning, we built in a job sharing option into your profile. So I'll just show you how that works now. If you go to your profile, click the edit button next to your name and scroll down to the bottom, then you can see, sorry, it's just struggling to load with the streaming, but right down the bottom, there is a job sharing option. So you just click that open to job share checkbox and save your profile. And that means that you will show up as open to job sharing roles in a search result on the page. So far over 30% of our registered CrewHQ members, and we have over 1,500 on the site so far, have checked that indication that they're interested in job sharing. It's just here. So if you save that one, I'll show you how you appear in search results. Now, this can be used either by hirers who are looking to hire you, or you can use it to find people in your role and your location who are interested in job sharing yourself. So you don't have to be a hirer to search for Crew. So if you went through and searched for what you were looking for, so let's say you're a production coordinator, for example, and you're looking for another production coordinator to job share with, you would click the production coordinator box, search, and then the results will show up. So you can see we've got 31 production coordinators on the site overall. Go down to the job sharing filter and you can click open to job share and apply that to see the people who are interested in job sharing. And then you can further narrow those search results down by the city that you're based in. You can filter by project type. So if you wanted someone, for example, who had television narrative experience specifically, you could apply that filter as well. And it's just a really easy way to see who's available. And then you can go through their snapshot results, send them a message through the site, which will get forwarded to their email address, or click through to their profile and contact them through their name and phone number and email address through there and see more about them. So we really recommend, if you're interested in job sharing, as a beginning point is sign up to CrewHQ and set that information up on your profile. And we'll be using that as a starting point to look at how we make job sharing information available more widely in conjunction with Screenwell. Aside from that, we're really looking to make the job sharing report information very clear and accessible to people. So we've got some resources that we've created with the Screenwell team now available on the site. So you can see an overview here of how job sharing works on CrewHQ, some of the perceived barriers that Rachel's going to be talking about later today and how to overcome them, and then some communication tools that you can use as part of your job sharing plan. So that's a starting point. I'll put this link here in the chat box, and we'll now throw back to Rachel to get started on how the job sharing plan works and how you can start to set yourself up for a job sharing role.
Hi guys. Okay, so we are going to be going through putting together a job share plan now. I'm going to be going through the basics, the details, and then how you pull everything together in practice to put together a plan. So to start with the basics, why do you want to job share? So Jono listed some of these reasons in at the start of his part. I think it's important as an employee to be aware of what the benefits are for an employer, because essentially you're going to be pitching the benefits to the employer. So it's good to know both what are the benefits for both sides, employers and employees. They're all listed in our report if you wanted to look them up again. For me personally, as I said at the start, it was about accessibility, and also it sort of annoyed me a bit that I felt, it's quite hypocritical for the industry to say we're all about accessibility and inclusivity, but you have to work 40, 50, 60 hours a week, because that automatically excludes a whole bunch of people, including myself. So that's for me personally, why I was drawn to job sharing. I think it's worth noting that job sharing happens in many other industries around Australia. Some of you might have seen the news recently that there's 2 federal MPs who are pitching themselves as a job share team that their constituency can vote for. And when I've had pushback on job sharing over the years, that it can't be done for whatever reason, I point out that ER doctors job share the care of patients in emergency wards. So if you can job share to save lives, you can job share to make a movie. Looking specifically at employee benefits and why you might want to job share that Jono touched on, a couple that I wanted to elaborate on. Cultivating a better work-life balance, that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So it is quite a wide list of options that might make you drawn to job sharing. Our EOI data showed that there were a lot of people that wanted to job share because they have a slate that they work on themselves, or they have a side business. So that came out as another really interesting reason why people might want to job share. And there's this stigma and belief that job sharing is only for mothers or parents or carers. But our pilot program and the data that came out of that show that that's really not the case. There are many reasons why you might want to job share. For employers, the benefits of job sharing for employers, why they might want to have a job share team on. What came out for us of the job sharing pilot with Matchbox Pictures was that the job sharer one, she was highly sought after by her HOD, and she basically said, I cannot work these hours. I won't be working these hours. If you want me, we have to do it as a job share because I can only work part-time. So the appeal for the HOD in this scenario was crew retention and attracting the talent that she wanted to be able to work with. Okay, so that was maybe, John, if you want to bring up number 1. So that was, why do you want to job share? Looking down to number 2, have you job shared before? It's totally fine to go for job sharing if you haven't done it before. Everyone has to have their first job share somewhere. But if you have job shared before, it's worth reflecting on what you learned, what worked, what didn't. Would you like to job share with that partner again? Number 3 of our plan, and this is all available from the Screenwell website. What's important to you professionally? What do you care about the most? So this is quite personal, and this question is designed to help you understand what you're looking for in a job share partner. So for me, it's communicating, especially during the handover. I want to know that I'm showing up to work, knowing everything that I need to know because my job sharer has communicated with me sufficiently and has done a good handover, not that I get to work and I'm sort of floundering around trying to figure out what's where and what's going on. Follow through is another thing that's really important to me. I want to work on the basis that we do what we say we're going to do when we're going to do it. And I can trust that my job share partner is getting on with their job and I'm getting on with my job. And they're pulling their weight, I'm pulling my weight. And there's not sort of an expectation that, I know that my job share partner's not slackening off. They're doing what they say they're going to do. I'll do the same. And because ultimately, if the job share is not going well, if there's trouble in paradise, it's going to reflect badly on everybody. So I want to know that someone's going to bring the same sort of work ethic that I have. So they're kind of sort of examples of things that I might say, this is the way that I like to work, this is what's important to me, and see if the aim of this question is to see if you're kind of in sync on those things. Question 4. What is your ideal job sharing arrangement? So this will be very personal based on your individual situation and why you want to job share. But once you've sort of got a bit of an idea about what ideally how you would like to set it up, then you can think about, who do I know? Who can I reach out to? Who have I worked with before that I really like to work with? Who has a similar set of skills or experience or a similar kind of level to myself, And that can help you sort of start to figure out who you can reach out to and ask them if they would like to be your job share partner. Question 5, do you have any restrictions? So be honest at this stage. Don't say you're available all the time. Sort of if you're not, if you don't want to do mornings or you can only do certain days, you need to be upfront about that with your job share partner. If you have a max capacity of 2 days and they have a max capacity of 2 days, how maybe that's not a good fit. Question 6, what boundaries do you have? What commitments do you and your job share partner need to respect? So that might be something like, I don't want to be contacted, or I'm not available after a certain time. Again, try to be as open about this as you can. And I think also come at it with the assumption that you're both professionals. Neither of you are going to take the piss. You're not going to be calling up your job share partner on the day off saying, where'd you leave the blah-de-blah? Where's the email that has the whatever? Knowing that, if your job share partner is contacting you, does need to contact you on your day off, it might be because they're in a tight spot and they just need to quickly touch base with you on something, get a bit of information, and then they'll carry on. So if you're looking at post-production roles, you need to sort of have a bit of an understanding. Are you going to be expected to have watched material, or if you're in an in-house role, even, do you need to have sort of read material before you get in? Like, what are the and when do you do that? So thinking about what your boundaries are and how that might all fit together. Okay, question 7. Are there any types of job sharing you're not open to? Again, be honest. One of the ways to split a job share, which Jono touched on, is by duties. So this could be, for example, someone does the more sort of senior tasks and someone does the more junior tasks. That might not work for you. So, that might not be the type of setup that you're keen to go for, as well as obviously time, which I've touched on already. Question 8. Are you both willing to share a weekly rate? This is a requirement of job sharing. Otherwise, the job sharing team will cost the production more than a full-time employee. So this is really important. To quote the HOD of one of the HODs that we spoke to on the Matchbox pilot program, she said money is the biggest handbrake. And that was because the job sharers, one of the setups that we were looking at, they wanted to be paid dailies because that turned out to be more than pro-rating a full-time rate. And as we've touched on, there are a lot of barriers to job sharing, and one of them is you need to try not to cost the production more money. So, and there are ways that you can do that, but coming at it with the asking yourself, can I afford, for my own personal economic and financial situation, to accept a prorated full-time rate? If that's not possible for your financial situation, maybe job sharing is not for you. But it's definitely something to consider at this stage. Question 9, how flexible can you be? Are there days that you'd be prepared to swap if necessary? Sometimes production schedules change. How adaptive can you be? So it's good to, if you do have a degree of flexibility, and so for example, we now need to film on Saturday instead of Friday, or as well as Friday, can you do that? My job share partner wants to swap their days or their hours. Can I do that? It's good to sort of establish if you've got hard and fast days or times that you can or cannot do. But if there is a bit of a degree of flexibility there, and you can mention that as part of your pitch to employers, that definitely makes the job share pitch more appealing. Okay, so that was, I think, all of the basics before we move into the details. And were there any questions so far, or should I keep going? If anyone has any questions, pop them in. Kirsty, I don't know if there's sort of any that have come up from that section so far that I can answer before we move on.
Yeah, so far it's just been some really great comments about how much of an impact this is going to have for various reasons. So family planning and childcare, and women having to leave the industry. Incredible implications for increasing accessibility in the industry, especially for disabled or chronically ill filmmakers. I think that's going to be such a huge impact, which is amazing. And Stephanie's asked the question about state funding agencies often wanting productions to hire local crew or have local expenditure. And she's wondering if this could open up new funding to productions by satisfying that local production expenditure instead of bringing on crew from interstate, which is a great point. And potentially you could have 2 skilled workers from that state who aren't able to work full time. But instead of bringing someone in from interstate, you're sharing those roles.
Yeah, absolutely. And myself and Screenwell, we are looking at continuing the job sharing work with talking to the relevant state agencies about what else we can do to help job sharing in each person's state. But yeah, that's a really good point. There's so many opportunities and ways that this can be applicable and help people. So it's really great that we're getting the conversation going and trying to work it all out together.
Yeah. Another question that's come through is, are there protections or support if the job sharing relationship breaks down?
When, as part of this, the pilot program that we did, it did come up the question of, well, what happens if it's not working? And I think part of the more planning that you can do beforehand to sort of really suss out if it's going to be a good fit or not, so you can avoid that, that would be great. The contract should have some sort of clause which says, what would happen. You need to kind of plan out with your employer what would happen if one of you wants to leave for whatever reason, and then you've got to try and get someone in to replace you. This will link in with one of the questions that I have further on, which is about what happens if you can't find a replacement. Can you work full-time or not? At the moment, there's not sort of really a guide on how to specifically address it's not working with my job share, sort of what do we do. That's something that we can hopefully look at putting out in the future, which has a bit more of a detailed action plan. But yeah, obviously the more work that you can do to try to set yourself up with a job share partner who potentially you've worked with before, or you've got some sort of pre-existing relationship, will sort of mitigate some of that risk, I think.
Great. And another question that's not specifically from this group but came through beforehand is, are job share roles being advertised in position descriptions yet, or are they still something that people have to seek out themselves?
Yeah, this is something I've been advocating for the past few years as part of my job sharing work. You'll often see at the bottom of job sharing ads where they have that equal opportunity statement where it says, we welcome applications from people of all genders, backgrounds, abilities, etc. To which my point is, but if you're mandating that they have to work a certain amount of hours, it's not really open to people of all abilities, because some people don't actually have the ability to work 40, 50, 60 hours a week. And so one of the recommendations that we have put in our job share report is to update that equal opportunity statement at the bottom to say, and we welcome job sharers. Job sharers are encouraged to apply, something like that, which shows that that's something that employers can be doing in job ads. For the most part, for myself, trying to get a job share for myself over the past few years and be doing the advocacy work that I have been doing, it's been a lot of proactiveness on my part, which is that I see a job ad, I reach out to them and I say, hello, is this role open to job sharing? And then I put some of the reasons why it should be and the benefits to the employer. Even something like the Screen Australia Enterprise Funding. When that was launched, I think it was last year, or maybe it was a year before that, that didn't specifically have a category in it for job sharers, but I approached them and asked them the same question, and they came back and said, yes, actually, we are open to job sharing. So hopefully the more of us that start asking that question, the more it will come to the attention of employers, and they'll proactively be putting it out there and saying that, yes, we would love to hear from job sharers.
Great. Okay, well, I think we might move on to the details of the job share plan, because I think that's really helpful in people outlining what they can offer to a production and what some of the potential benefits are in hiring a job share team.
Yeah, cool. All right, so question 10 for the details. So this is, you kind of move on to this stage once you've got a job share partner that you think might be a good fit. You've had a good, you've had a chat, you've had a coffee, and you think, okay, what's next? So question 10, if one partner needs time off or is sick, would you be prepared to step in? So this might depend for how long. If someone's just off, with a cold for a day or two, you can jump in. It might not be realistic even then, and it's important to be upfront about that with your job share partner and with your potential employer. Of course, this can be a really appealing part of the pitch for employers to know that if someone does go down sick, which does happen all the time, that there's someone there who knows the job, who knows the rest of the crew, who knows the way of working, and can hop in and provide cover for that person. Question 11. What if the job share partner needs to step away permanently? So this kind of ties into the question that we had earlier. Is the remaining job sharer able to step in and work full time? There should be no expectation that you have to, but if you're open to, it's worth mentioning here along with any boundaries. So one of the reasons that the job share partner might need to step away permanently is if it's just not working. Hopefully, of course, it won't get to that point. And I think one way to avoid it getting to that point as well is to be doing regular check-ins with your job share partner. So if things are starting to maybe not go so well, you're on it sooner rather than later before it becomes a really big issue. For me personally, if I was asked this question with a potential job share partner, the answer would probably be no. If we were in the last week of filming and I had to look at doing 40, 50, 60 hours a week, maybe I could, push it. But if we were in the first week of filming, no, I cannot. I physically can't work those hours. So there's no right or wrong answer to this question, but it's important that everybody knows where everybody stands so that you've got what to do if you get to that situation. Question 12. While the goal of job sharing is not to be contacted on your day off, if something urgent arises, would you be willing to take a phone call or respond to a text or an email? What are the expectations? And so it's important to set the ground rules. This is similar to question 6 in a way. What boundaries do you have? So again, really important to be upfront. But now that we're into the detail section, you can think specifically. So for example, WhatsApp groups, if there's a work WhatsApp group, as I'm sure we all know, there can be a million messages going through a WhatsApp group just on one day. Are you going to be reading those messages on your day off? You're not being paid to be across work on your day off. So for me personally, I like to have that boundary in place. It's important that I feel like I can switch off from all the information that's coming at me on my day off. And I think that's fine to sort of, have that boundary in place. But it's just important that everybody knows to what degree everybody is engaging on their day off. Emails is another one. Are you okay with skim reading emails? Sometimes when I've been in job shares, I might actually switch off the notifications on my email app so that I don't get them in. And then maybe towards the end of the day, I might just check in and have a little squiz. Sometimes it's that I would like to just sort of know roughly where things are at. It's a really personal decision. There was a really good case study that came out of the UK where the way that this particular job share team liked to work was that they liked knowing that their job share partner was keeping an eye on things and skimming over things on their day off, because essentially it offers a second pair of eyes to pick up on things that you might have missed. So again, it's a really personal choice about the way that you would like to work, just so everybody knows sort of where everybody is at with that. Okay, question 13. How will you communicate both with each other and with your team? So if there was only going to be one question out of all of this that you spent a lot of time thinking about, it should be this one. Communication is really sort of like the bedrock of a good job share. So, and spending some time thinking about those systems, putting them in place, maintaining those systems, tweaking them if need be, it's all really important. There is a good resource on CrewHQ, which you can refer to after this, which lists some specific tools that you can and techniques that you can use to aid the communication. You might have a preference of a particular system that you might like to use to communicate. But of course, once you get into a particular job, they might say, actually, we don't use the Google Suite, we use Microsoft instead. And so you might need to sort of tweak things. But it's good to, think about this in advance. For example, the shared email and the shared phone. We'll get into some of this as well later when we go through the handover point. But they're both really good options. So still, thanks, Jono. So with the shared email and the shared phone, for example, with the shared email on the Matchbox pilot production that we did, Job Sharer 2 wanted to use a shared email and she set one up. But then Job Sharer 1 wasn't keen on it because for her particular job, all her different accounts were all linked to her personal email address. And it all happened very quickly and they had to onboard at a rapid pace. And so it was just easier for her to just keep going with what she already had. But ideally, if you've got, you'd have a bit more time to think and plan this sort of thing through about how you could do it. Voice notes are a really good way to be communicating. They can be done on the fly as you're moving from A to B. It's a really great way to communicate information. There's also apps like Todoist or having a shared iPhone note or a shared Google Doc. If you're having something like a Google Doc, you could have a section called At a Glance at the top, which is where you put really sort of like important, the main takeaways or the main points that you need to be able to communicate between within the team. Whatever system you end up going with, it should be something that can be done both at a computer or on your phone, because you'll be sort of moving around and you never know sort of where you'll be, and it's sort of some sort of system that can be updated from both options would be good. If you are doing a shared email, what's going to be your inbox management system? Are you going to be pinning important emails to the top? Will you have some sort of a flag system or a categories system? Again, whatever you go with, it's on both job sharers to maintain that system. It's not fair that if it's just, it's one person that's maintaining all of that for the benefit of the other job sharer, and then they're not getting the benefit when they come in. Essentially, think about what's suitable for your role. And the other important thing to plan, to think about for communication when you're trying to come up with sort of a detailed plan is to plan regular check-ins both with each other, with your HOD or whoever your hiring manager is. If you are a manager, to have regular check-ins with the people that you manage to make sure that how is this job share working for the rest of the team, and is the communication flowing well between everybody. Also, the other thing to think about with communicating is that the onboarding and sort of pre-production period that's when there can really be a lot of information flying about, because decisions are being made quickly, things are changing all the time. So have a think about how you're going to handle that sort of rapid pace during that onboarding phase. Consider any logistics that are relevant to your department. How are you going to manage and organize kit or equipment? All those kinds of things that you need to communicate about in that early stage. And so I did say communication was going to be a big one. There was a lot to go through there. All right, moving on to question 14. How will you ensure that you have each other's backs? It's important to be a united front to mitigate any negative perceptions and performance concerns. So as I mentioned before, if it seems like a job share is not going well, it's probably going to reflect badly on both of you, unfortunately. And especially if you're the first job share team that a hiring manager has agreed to have, or the first that's gone into a production company, there can be a lot of pressure to try to nail it and to appear that you are a well-oiled unit, so that it makes it easier for subsequent job share units to come on board. So I guess the biggest thing I can say about this is to have your partner's back, and that's something that you can discuss in the when you're having that sort of conversation at the basic phase, to say that, you know, you really want to feel that you are a unit, you are a team, I've got your back, you've got my back, we're in this together, coming at it with that sort of attitude. If you're at the HOD level, it's also important to make sure that you appear as a united front, so that other team members or crew don't think that they can go around one of you. So, you know, a no from one of us is a no from both of us. And to kind of come across as this team, as opposed to two individuals who are just sort of off doing their own thing and not communicating and working well as a team themselves. Okay, question 15. Based on the job share type you have agreed and the experiences of working in your role, how will you navigate handing over information? The handover is one of the most important. I think there's another bit to bring up, Jono, underneath that. Is there? Yeah. The handover is one of the most important aspects of job sharing, so it's essential you plan for this. Consider, if your role would benefit from a handover period together, what would be ideal? Bear in mind, if you are both prepared to work a 5.5-hour day without a break, you can factor in a 30-minute crossover period. So that's a really great option, especially for potential more sort of technical on-set roles. I think there's a bit more underneath that as well, Jono, to come up. Yeah. How can you complete the handover without creating additional work for team members? Ideally, a job share team would not rely on a third party to ferry information between them. This is really important in the job share pilot program that we did with Matchbox. The 2IC was really sort of like the third wheel to the job share unit at times. She was ferrying a lot of information around, and that obviously really coloured her perception of having a job share team, working with a job share team. Would she want to do it again? As it happened, there were many benefits for her, especially when it came to working with the crew that she wanted to work with, and that crew retention and like talent attraction aspect of it. You know, so there's pros and cons, but ideally you don't want to be relying on anybody outside of the job share team to make it work. How will you ensure continuity of information, and that colleagues won't have to repeat themselves, and that nothing slips through the cracks? These are all really important. People are busy. They don't want to be having to, you know, go over things multiple times with different people. So if you have spent some time on the communication section, that's when you can kind of start to pull it all together for this handover section. And I think there's a bit more on this, the handover, Jono, if you skip to the next. Okay, what systems and procedures can you implement? For example, sharing an email address or a phone. If so, how will you manage the inbox? A shared email address, phone is easier for the wider crew, as they can always reach the correct person, as opposed to them sitting there thinking, oh, what day is today? Who do I contact? What time is it? Who am I contacting right now? So there's a definite pro to that. Next is access to shared notes, documents, to-do lists, voice notes, calendars, etc. So you can note down anything that might be relevant to your partner as you go. Also consider implementing a color coding system to demonstrate which are the urgent action items. And I think there's a little, yes, sending a summary voice at the end of your work period so that your partner can listen to it when they start their shift. And another one is also on this handover. When is the handover going out? Pick a time that it will be, the handover, if it's full days or half days or however it's happening, so that the job share partner is not sort of sitting around waiting. The incoming job share partner, they can crack on with things, and it's important so that you know when that handover is going to be happening. So this is all really detailed, and it can all be sort of tailor-made to your particular role. Okay, all right, we've only got 15 minutes left. I'll pick up the pace. 16, with respect to your role, how will you establish yourselves as a job share team? How will you introduce yourselves to the team and explain how your job share works? Prepare to make it very clear who is available and when, including any boundaries you want to be respected. So will you send an email? Will you have one-on-one chats? Will you have a group meeting? Be prepared to also remind people, especially in the beginning part, because there's a lot of information going around and people might just call you when it's your day off and you say, remind people it's actually my day off, you'll need to speak to so-and-so. And this applies to not just colleagues within the crew, but also suppliers or anyone that you work with externally for the production. Before we jump to more questions, I might just crack on and finish the next bit off, the in practice section, if we've only got sort of 10 minutes left or so. So now coming down to the actual plan, and I saw some of the questions that came in before the people pre-submitted. Like, how do you actually approach a potential employer with the plan? So again, it's on a case-by-case basis depending on what type of work you do. Is it a job that's being advertised? Is it, are you reaching out to contacts and proactively pitching sort of like a cold email situation, or reaching out to your contacts? Maybe don't send a whole plan right off the bat. I tend to start with a bit of a short summary of the benefits of job sharing for employers, and say that I have a detailed plan with my job share partner, and we'd love the chance to discuss it further. Okay, so touch on the benefits. What are the unique benefits you can offer a potential employer as a job share team? John, if you want to, yeah. So suggestions: acknowledge you will share a full-time salary. If job sharers are willing to step in for the other job sharer, mention it here. Highlight the advantages of bringing your two sets of skills, creativity and experience. If you are, like I said, if you are in that lucky position where you're sought after talent and a particular HOD or a hiring manager really wants to work with you, then lucky you, and you have a lot of power in this situation. If anyone's got a good shot of getting job sharing happening, it's you. Even if you don't have a job share partner, if a HOD really wants you and you really want to job share, then go for trying to make that pitch, and then that will obviously open up a job share opportunity for someone else to be your job share partner. So tailor this section to your specific role, and sort of like what you're looking at. But ideally you will both have an identical spiel here that you're both sending out when you're applying for roles or reaching out to contacts. Okay, next is the proposed job share model. What job share model are you proposing to the production? Include the details of how you propose job sharing will work, acknowledge any boundaries and what aspects you can be flexible with. It's okay if you don't have too much of a set plan in terms of, like, I've applied for roles as a job share team where all we've known is someone's going to do 3 days and I'm going to do 2 days and that's it. Because the employer might have a preference. They might say, okay, well, I want this person to do these days and this other person to do these days, and that's fine. Next, managing the handover. So how will you manage this? Be specific about how you maintain continuity of information and the methods that you will use and why they work. Next, communication methods. How will you communicate specifically? Provide details of shared emails, phones, technology that you will use. If you plan to organise regular check-ins with your partner and your managers, mention it here also. second to last point is contingency plans. How will you mitigate performance risks as a team? Point out that you're committed to making this work, that you have each other's back as a team, and that you're confident that your skills and experience are complementary. It's really important that you go in there with this attitude of, I specifically want to job share, not I just want any old job and job sharing will do. I'm committed to job sharing, making sure that this works because I have a vested interest in it working for various reasons. Okay, and the last slide is about how do you actually physically do this in terms of having a shared cover letter or shared CV. So you want the situation to be that either partner can be applying on behalf of the job share team, or in conjunction, both partners apply together. It shouldn't be on just one side of the team to be doing all the applying and talking to people. You can have a shared cover letter and CV, or a shared cover letter with 2 individual CVs. This is my personal preference because it showcases the breadth of the combined experience. So again, go on a case-by-case basis. Is it that you're both applying for a job, but you have an identical spiel in your cover letter to say, I'm applying as a job share unit with so-and-so, and here's why, and here's the benefits. Each job share partner should have a copy of each other's CV, so that if an opportunity arises and it's a quick turnaround, you can just jump on the phone and see if that's something that you want to apply with, and then potentially send off the application on behalf of both of you if you've got each person's CV. So yeah, there's kind of a few different ways that you can physically pull it all together and go about it. All right, we have a few minutes left for questions. That's it from me. Thank you, everybody, from bearing with while we go through the presentation. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Great. I'll give people some time to add questions into the chat, but thanks, Rachel. That's really informative. There's a few questions that have come up along the way. Mm-hmm. So do we know anything about how job sharing could work as a hybrid mixture? For example, some person on set and someone supporting them from a at-home role or remote role behind the scenes. Do you think that's a possibility?
Yes, yeah. This was a type of job share that we were hoping to get set up in the pilot program. It does work elsewhere, and I mean in terms of like, look how far we've come with remote working. So we know that remote working is an option, but yeah, unfortunately, we didn't have a specific case study that we could track and sort of get cold hard data on in this particular pilot program, but hopefully in the future that will be the case.
Yeah, and I think that's just another seed that's great to plant for people as well, is if you're dividing roles by, the types of tasks that are being completed, then that could be an option as well.
Yeah, and that's one that I particularly myself am interested in because I live down on the South Coast, and so if there's a way that I can access the workplace through a job share, but also being able to work remotely and job share with a partner who's the boots on the ground, that would be great for me.
Yeah, like I think if we even just think about some of the industry roles where that could be applicable, like the first one that came to mind for me as a bit of a no-brainer was some of the folks in the accounts department, like, somebody that could be on the ground and, handing out pay slips potentially, but then also somebody that's entered that payroll information could be remote, So I think it's just about getting a little bit creative with some of the roles that we can, show people that job sharing is a really viable, option. And that's, that's an office-based role, which may be, an easier one for my mind to initially go to, but there would be others where there is, say sourcing of certain materials or something that could be done actually in a city or a regional place. Or maybe even in a city when, folks are shooting on location. So you're actually not on location, but you're somewhere else. So just thinking about actually, can we actually split it up that way?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think once you start thinking through specific roles, there's ways that they naturally lend themselves to different types of splitting. So I read an example in the UK where it was a costume team and they would alternate one person being on set with the person being in the truck. And so the person in the truck had more flexible hours and were able to go home earlier during that week, but then they were more full on working longer hours in that other position, or even for, you know, roles that have pre-calls and post-calls, like costume is obviously that one as well, makeup unit. There's real opportunities to do those split days, and, you know, that could potentially even save the production money by not having to pay out so much overtime to those crew at the end of the day, but gives that flexibility for those people in working, you know, 8-hour days that cross over in the middle, for example.
Yes, yeah. I think it's really important to note that, you know, job sharing is still in its infancy in Australia, unfortunately. And so the more of us that are out there having these conversations, advocating for it, talking to employers, trying to problem solve, the better shot it has of getting a bit of traction and sort of, you know, nothing's going to change unless we're out there having these conversations. I've been doing this for a few years now, advocating for job share, and I've had a lot of no's. I've been told it can't be done for this reason, it can't be done for that reason. So I guess be prepared that that's kind of, unfortunately, at this stage, realistically, potentially what you will be up against. It's not to say that it can't be done. I have had multiple roles job sharing, and things are sort of slowly starting to change. But the really good thing about job sharing is that it is such a bespoke solution. So there's no, it has to be done this way. It can only be done for these sorts of roles. This is a creative industry where creative people think how, you know, what types of solutions that you can come up with, and don't be afraid to put that out there, and just keep trying.
Yeah.
And I think that proactive approach and going to people with solutions as opposed to problems can often be what makes the difference. I know as a producer, if someone said, oh, we want a job share, but had no plan in place, I would go, oh, this feels like something to put in the too hard basket in a time when I'm already busy with thousands of other things in pre-production. But if two people came to me and said, hey, here's our plan, this is how we think it could work, I would go, great, you know, fantastic.
And that's something, that's a specific phrase that I've had throughout the whole past few years of working on job sharing, is that it's currently in the too hard basket, and my goal is to help get it out of the too hard basket. And so doing this planning and this working and this problem solving and anticipating, you know, obviously no one expects you to have answers for every single possible scenario about things that may go wrong, or, you know, we've certainly covered off a lot of them in our job sharing report. But again, just having that attitude of, we can do this, like, we're creative people, we problem solve every day. This is just another problem that we can solve.
Yeah, and as you do start to have success, and as you do come up with your plans with your job sharing partners, we would love if you could share those case studies with us and share the outcomes and the tools that have worked for you, because we want to help make this more prolific across the industry. And if we can start putting those case studies and those tips together as resources, then that's really going to help others who follow in our footsteps to have more success in the future as well.
Yeah, and I would also say, just mention quickly also, that it's probably a good idea to have a few different people that you could maybe look at for job sharing. Like, I do a bunch of different type of work, and I have sort of established relationships with a few different people that I reach out to depending on what the role is. So if you can just find one person to look at job sharing with, great, but feel free to sort of, you're not beholden to any one person. You can, you know, everyone has their own contacts that they can maybe get work through. And so it's good to start having as many conversations as you can about this.
Yeah. One thing I'd add as well is where we were really conscious, and I think when you see the job share plan laid out in the detail that Rachel went into it, there's a lot of work for job sharers to do, that we're asking job sharers to do, to create these detailed plans. And I think it's really important to also acknowledge that the report does have recommendations for industry. It does have recommendations for producers and production companies. And those recommendations are really about taking all of the onus off job sharers and making it more accessible via various different avenues. So we didn't go into the recommendations for industry, but there are a number of recommendations which is all about that, making job sharing more accessible to the industry as a whole.
Yes. Yeah.
We just have a few questions that have come through, so we might do a quick fire round to finish off.
Rapid fire, hit us.
Yeah.
Go.
Do you know if screen agencies support job sharing? I have been lined up to do an attachment in the past, but was told that it wouldn't work with a job share role.
Oh.
Yeah, so I can't really specifically talk to that particular example, but yeah, like a terrible experience to potentially go through that way. I guess with the complexities of some positions that people are trying to get for folks, they maybe hadn't thought that it was a viable option, and certainly probably that came in advance of maybe the report and recommendations that may have made it easier. So sucks that was your experience on that. So sorry for that. But I guess definitely from the conversations that we're having and some of the plans, like Jono said, not just to help job sharers, but to actually help producers, help production companies with job sharing, help heads of department understand it, so they know what to do, and take away some of the fear around it's going to create more work for people. Some of the plans that we've got in that space, and some of the conversations that we are having with agencies and other kind of industry stakeholders seem to be very open and positive, because like us, they can kind of see the benefits that this tool of job sharing can have across the industry through sustainability, more inclusion, holding people in the industry that want to stay in the industry but they just can't work the hours, people coming back into the industry that can't do the hours. So they can see in the initial conversations we're having that way, but we don't have anything particular to announce just yet.
Yeah, but there were also that screen agency supporting job sharing is certainly a feature of the recommendations for industry and Screenwell, and no doubt everyone here on this call will be advocating for those opportunities to be more readily available.
Yeah,
because it will help, particularly just with getting over the barrier of people getting used to it. I think we all feel that once this is normal, once this is just a thing that just exists and people do, then it won't be a big deal. But until we get to that kind of point, we just need a little bit of support to be able to make people aware of job sharing, and that it's doable, and that it's not going to impact the production.
And that it's not necessarily a completely new thing, but job sharing or ways of working that lean towards job sharing have been done in this industry in the past. So it's about just leaning towards them in more detail. Okay, next question. Are there any insurance implications that you've come across in relation to job sharing?
No is the short answer. It's job sharing is currently contracted as two part-time employees, so it's really it all fits under existing agreements. It's from a legal perspective, it's pretty straightforward. So no real implications in that sense.
Mm-hmm. And just continuing on the contracts theme, you've already said that you'd signed 2 separate part-time agreements with the employer. Would it also make sense to sign an agreement with your job share partner?
Well, I guess that's what the job share plan is. In effect, it's an agreement. I mean, it's not a legally binding official agreement. I guess you could go down that path if you really wanted to be thorough. But that's the purpose of the job share plan.
Yeah, I've not come across any research or recommendation or case studies where that's been the case, but it's something that you feel really strongly about and that you want to put in place. I don't see any reason why you couldn't.
Great. Just a comment that Screen Tasmania has recently seen an attachment split across 2 practitioners at 3 weeks each, which helped to facilitate family commitments. So slightly different to job share, but the conversation is changing, which is great.
Yeah, great.
Excellent. Oh, well, that's all of the questions in the chat box today. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming along. It's been amazing to go through in such detail. And thank you to Screenwell, Ben, Rachel, Jonathan, for all of the work that you've put into this, along with the support from Screen Australia and Matchbox. I think for me, just reading the report and seeing all of the recommendations that have come out of it, it starts to feel like job sharing isn't just this big ambivalent thing, but something that is actually possible in our industry. And I think that the more people that get behind it and support it and start thinking about what's possible rather than just putting it in the too hard basket, it's going to see a real shift in the next couple of years. So please keep sharing the information. This resource will be available on CrewHQ as a replay link for anyone who's missed it that you want to be able to share this with. I'll also just add the links back into the chat now while the others close off of the job share, breaking down the barriers to job sharing report that Screenwell just recently released, as well as those resources on the CrewHQ website. And thank you so much for coming. I'll leave it to you guys to do a final wrap up while I post those quotes.
I just would love to say, Kirsty, thank you for all of the support that you've given us, particularly and for working with us on that really integral, critical solution, which is having a place where people can go, identify job sharers and connect with job sharers, because as we heard, that is just such an important piece of the puzzle. And I don't think without CrewHQ that would be really difficult to be able to tell people about, because it's really limited to their own networks. So
yeah, the matchmaking function that you've got now
yes.
on the CrewHQ website, is fantastic. And so job sharers, you can connect with each other and find each other by signing up on CrewHQ. So yeah, thanks Kirsty for all your support and help, and an integral kind of partner to make job sharing a reality. So thank you, and thanks everyone for turning up. We really appreciate your interest in this, and hopefully this has helped you move your journey with job sharing forward, so that you can thrive in the work and the creative projects that you want to get involved in.
Good luck, everyone. Thanks so much.